Well, welcome to U.S. Farm Report this post-Thanksgiving Day weekend. We're thankful to have Chip Nellinger as well as Mike North joining us. We're doing both markets in the first half hour. Since the second half hour, we have our annual Harvest of Thanks special. All right, Chip, I want to start with you. This year, as you reflect back on the markets, a lot to be thankful for. But what are you most thankful for when it comes to the market action so far this year?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things come to mind. First and foremost, we're blessed with very high prices. We have some of the highest price levels here in corn and beans. We've had opportunities in wheat at tremendous price levels. I think the other thing here is across the Corn Belt, due to the logistics situation with needing corn in the plains and the Western Corn Belt and having those corn supplies in the Eastern Corn Belt, producers are blessed with very historically strong basis levels. So price and basis, I guess the third thing would be here, particularly in the Eastern Corn Belt, is yield. We had some tremendous yields here in the Eastern Corn Belt. And I think producers, east of the Mississippi River are really blessed with all three: price, yield, and strong basis. So I think that's first and foremost at the top of the list there, Time.
Yeah, and Mike, Chip alluded to it, but it was a dire drought situation, and we know a lot of producers just had a very frustrating production year in that Western Corn Belt and farther west. You talked to a lot of those producers, so there were struggles. But when you look at it as a whole, what do you think we have what are you the most thankful for when it comes to the markets, Mike?
I think we're seeing health on a lot of different sectors. Despite all the volatility, we've had a very strong dairy and livestock market this year that has, helped maintain a good healthy balance across the buy-sell side of the transaction. And as we look at markets today, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in ethanol margins back towards some of the better levels we've seen all year. There's just a lot of good things that are happening both on the supply and demand side. And when you can put those two things together, you have a really healthy market that we're creating a balance where everyone can have some wins.
Yeah, Chip, and as you look now post-Thanksgiving, heading into that holiday trade, is the U.S. production side, is that the old story, or is that still what could possibly move the markets as we head into these holidays?
Well, I think it's starting to be a little bit of an old story. The USDA has, bumped these yields up. That to me says that they're pretty close. We're going to have a final update on those yields in January. I think more importantly, though, the Southern Hemisphere is going to be the big story as we get past the holidays here. Brazil's off to a really good start. Argentina is still very dry. To me, the Southern Hemisphere is going to dictate whether we have, a run into maybe new highs sometime later this winter or spring, or if we're going to start into a renewed downtrend here because world supplies are growing. So to me, I think the hot button here, the key story, is going to be Southern Hemisphere production.
On the livestock side, Mike, typically heading into the holidays, big time for dairy, big time for butter, big time for cheese, big time for fluid milk. So what are you watching as far as holiday trade goes, and if this demand can keep pace this year?
Consumer activity is at the top of the radar right now, and how we come through Q4 with retail sales, food service activity, how the consumer engages the dairy complex is going to be top of mind as we look at 2022 Q4 into the Q1 2023 timeframe. Obviously cheese and butter, you called them out, are the two big ones this time of the year, and those will lead the discussion. So how they engage, what kind of sales we see, that'll be huge as it relates back to inventories and what needs to happen as we go into Q1.
And as we finish out Q4, is there any of that consumer activity that you think could impact other commodities, Chip?
Well, again, I think we've seen some concern about exports here, particularly on the corn and the wheat side of the equation. So, we've seen a little bit of an uptick here this past week in corn exports. I think, export demand to end the year is going to be important that we hold that together. Again, unless there's a major problem in South American production, they're going to take over later into, that first quarter of the new year and kind of take some of our export to competitiveness away. So in my mind, we got to see a nice uptick in corn and bean exports going into the end of the year here the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, when it comes on the export front, there's a lot to be thankful for there too. So we'll get into that with Mike North, as well as, last year traders and kind of those fund managers took a backseat. They kind of got out of the markets. Do they expect that to happen again this year? We're going to ask Chip and Mike that. But first, stay with us because we're going to have a checkup of weather next, right here on U.S. Farm Report.